This week we're looking at just a few of the many benefits that come with knowing a little bit about graphic design. Hello, my name is Simon Cade and this is DSLRguide. So if you're anything like me, you've probably been doing graphic design for many years without even noticing it. So whether that's doing PowerPoint presentations or YouTube thumbnails or even like the titles for your short films, titles and credits, that all comes under the umbrella term of graphic design. So this is the first reason why I think filmmakers should learn about graphic design, and that is because it's literally everywhere. Whether you're pitching an idea with the PowerPoint presentation, or if you're writing a blog, or if you have a YouTube channel or a Twitter page, then there are plenty of opportunities there to use graphic design on the banners and stuff like that. And if you do a short film, and as I said, the titles, the credits, any other text that you use in your videos, as well as business cards and your website. And there are three options here really. The first one is you could hire someone else to do it, and they could just handle all this stuff, and that's great, but obviously there's going to be a cost involved. So for me, that's not really an option. Or you could just do it yourself, and that's fine, but I think the best option is the third one, which is to also do it yourself, but to actually spend some time learning about it, spend some time practicing it, because then you can actually do a good job, you know, up to a professional standard possibly, and it also won't cost you anything. So that's probably the best thing, and that's certainly what I'm going to be doing. So we've established that there's definitely a need for graphic design for filmmakers, but how can we actually go about doing this? Well, the first obstacle, and my second reason why filmmakers should learn graphic design, is because it's practically free. You can go ahead and download GIMP, which is a free open source program which is really quite powerful and very similar to Photoshop. And to be honest, that is really all you need, especially when you're getting started. And the next thing is, once you open up GIMP and you start doing some text, you might find that none of the fonts look very professional. And again, there's another free option here. If you go to google.com/fonts, then Google has actually licensed a whole bunch of fonts. There are hundreds on there, which all are pretty professional, and they are completely free and legal to use for personal projects or professional projects. So that really is a great resource. And as a way of demonstrating that, all of the graphics in this video were made using GIMP and using those Google fonts only. So if you're interested in what those fonts were, then be sure to check out the blog post where I've got all the list for the fonts that I used, as well as some screenshots about how I made the graphics. So the next reason is that I think graphic design teaches you a lot about visual storytelling. It teaches you how to present information in a way that is both concise but also looks good, and it teaches you about where the eye is drawn to in the frame or the page if it's a graphic design. And these skills must be transferable to video. You know, you're working with composition, you're working with color, and all these things that help to flex that visual storytelling muscle that we have metaphorically. But even if you have no intention of doing much graphic design yourself, I still think you should try it out and learn the basics. Because let's say you're working on a short film and you're the director, and you hire a graphic designer to produce a Twitter campaign and some merchandise as well as a poster. Imagine how much better you would be at presenting the ideas that you want if you have just the basics of the vocabulary and what the limitations are, rather than someone who doesn't even know why Comic Sans is a bad idea. You know, understanding the basics would be hugely valuable if you ever have to communicate with a professional graphic designer in the future. Plus, while putting this video together, I learned a lot and actually found that I really enjoyed graphic design. So you might find that graphic design is a new hobby, or you might find that it's really what your career has been leading up to, or it might just be a good thing to be able to do freelance in between film projects. But really, you don't know until you've tried whether it's something that you're really good at or something that you enjoy. So I really think it is worth just giving it a try and learning the basics. And finally, as I always do with these why filmmakers should videos, I'd really like to give you just a few tips for if you do want to get started. So the first thing is probably the obvious one, and it's the best way to learn pretty much anything these days, and that is to go on YouTube and find some tutorials for basic graphic design, typography, color theory and all that sort of stuff, so that you can really sink your teeth into some good content about it. So the ones I recommend are Karen Cavett and Sean Barry. So I'll put those linked in the description and on the blog post, and a combination of learning and practicing should get you pretty far. So tip number 2 is that obviously colour is very important, and one of the main things I'd say is that when you're choosing colours, try to avoid using too many of the full red. So if you drop the saturation down, drop the brightness down, or maybe brighten it up a bit more, then you'll get some very different colours, which are a lot better usually than just using like a full red and a full yellow and a full blue. You know, those really bright colours tend to be quite difficult on the eye. So a good way of choosing these colours is to actually look out for colour palettes, and again I'll have a link to a really cool website where it has loads of different ideas for colours that people think work well together. You can get some great ideas there for a colour palette to use, which then means that you have a theme to stick to, so you don't have just like hundreds and hundreds of different colours. The next tip is something which I use all the time, and that is drop shadows. So when you add a text layer, you should try out just duplicating the layer and then blurring it and moving it around a bit, dropping the opacity until it's really subtle, and then see what that looks like compared to without the shadow. Because often just having that drop shadow will really help to add depth and separate it from the background, as well as just making it really pop out the page. And that works for text as well as photos and images or anything else. So it doesn't always work, but it's definitely worth trying to see if a drop shadow will improve the look of that element. And my last tip is to find a poster or a YouTube thumbnail or a leaflet or anything that you think looks really, really good, and then just bring it into GIMP or something and try and copy on a new page exactly what they've done as close as possible. So this is just like with many things you're learning, whether it's lighting or 3D stuff. It's really important that you look at a really professional one, the one that you like, and then just try and break it down, because you'll most likely see that while it's not as simple as just, you know, clicking on one thing and it just being done, there are lots of steps, but you'll also probably find that those individual steps aren't too difficult, and it's just the way you combine them which makes a good image at the end. So that would be my final piece of advice. And if you do that loads, then you're pretty guaranteed to make some good stuff. So I'd like to do some more of these Why Filmmakers Should videos. So if you have any ideas of a skill that isn't directly related to filmmaking, but you still think is important, then feel free to write in the comments your suggestion, and you never know, I might do a whole video about it. So that's it for this week. Make sure you remember to check out those recommended channels in the description. There's a lot of really good stuff to learn from those guys. And also the blog post if you're interested in how I made the graphics in this video. So that's it for this week, and I'll see you next time.